We have one more young Indian with us, part of the Voice of the Young series. Today, we have with us Lavanya Desiraju. Let's listen to her. Over to you, Lavanya.
Hello. Thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Lavanya. I graduated from the University of Chicago with my master's in economics. I focused in financial economics, finance in general, and macroeconomics during my degree. Prior to that, I got my bachelor's at Shri College of Commerce, University of Delhi, in economics as well, and I minored in math and journalism. Currently, I work as an analyst for a real estate valuation firm called Cole Consulting. And generally, my work involves around time series analysis for valuation of commercial properties.
Okay. So you're not a student anymore?
No, I graduated in 2022.
Okay, fine. So you've been working quite a bit now.
For just over a year, yes.
Okay, fine. So let's hear more about it from you. What you did in Delhi and so on. And how did you come to Chicago and so on?
Right. So it's an interesting story as to how I even got to Delhi, because when I told my parents that, the typical thing that all my friends did or everybody expected us to do when we were in 10th grade was, okay, you're going to study science, you're going to become a doctor or an engineer. And I was like, no, thank you. I do not like the avenues that I have there. I don't enjoy studying that. So I initially thought, okay, I'm going to do commerce and business studies because I wanted to become a CA. But then once I got to my 11th and 12th grade and I started doing maths and economics, I was like, I enjoy this quite a bit more than, accounting or anything else I was studying in my commerce courses. So then I started looking up things like, okay, well, what can I do to actually pursue these things together? And then I came across the University of Delhi. And, the economics honors course seemed like it was a good mix of math and economics, and it would enable me to pursue both my interests. So applied to University of Delhi. Back then we didn't have an entrance test. So it was, still the era where 12th grade marks was the setup for you to get into DU. So performed well in my 12th grade and then got into SRCC, economics honors. It was very different than what I've heard people's undergraduate experiences go like, because my first year I was like, okay, I want to explore as much as I can. So I was part of 11 student societies in my first year, which do not recommend at all. Pick and choose 4 or 5 that you're genuinely interested in. But, I tried to manage those 11 societies while still trying to attend all my classes. Did not go well, but the good thing was those classes were primarily an extension of what we had done in 11th and 12th grade. Especially I was trying to apply abroad as well for my undergrad. So I did AP classes. So they were very similar. So I ended up doing okay. But so I explored a lot in my first year. That's when I realized that, okay, I don't think I want to stop with my undergrad with economics. I like it more than that. And I started working with a couple of professors, doing a little bit of research, starting off with like class projects and smaller projects where instead of, we started talking to professors and being like, hey, would it be okay if we wrote a paper for this class instead of taking the internal exam for our 20 points that, you will send to the university? And a lot of them liked that initiative and were very supportive of that. So we started getting into research that way. And then starting second year is when you obviously take all of your core classes in DU's curriculum. The first year is everybody takes the same classes. If you're doing an economics honors course, everybody has to take the intro to micro, intro to macro, intro to mathematical methods classes. And then the only wiggle room you get is your generic elective. But then starting second year, you choose your subject specific electives. And then that's when I started getting interested in more macro concepts. So I did international economics and financial economics. And that's how I got into those fields and started doing my research work there. And then COVID hit. So that was an interesting experience to go through the final year of college, trying to apply into grad school because I wanted to keep my options open in the sense of I was still very much okay with going to a grad school in India. So I was preparing for my entrance exams to ISI, DSE, IGIDR Mumbai, GIPE, Pune, Madras School of Economics, all of these courses, while also trying to write my GRE, IELTS exams, prep for grad school abroad, because at the end of the day, especially in the US, master's programs are extremely, extremely expensive to pursue. So I didn't want to put my parents in a position where they would have to say no to me if I got into a program because the fees was too much. And my father had made it very clear that he was not comfortable with me taking out a loan for my education. So I was like, I still want to be in a good place if I end up not being able to secure a scholarship or something doesn't work out and I can't go abroad for my master's. So I was still preparing for those while I was trying to, study for my entrance exams. But I think at the end of the day, it ended up being very helpful for me to actually prepare for those entrance exams, given that all of my elective courses, which we take in the third year, happened virtually.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I got my full experience of actually being able to interact with my peers or go to professors during office hours and be like, I'm confused as to what this concept is. Where can I learn about this more? As much as everybody tried, that was the first batch of people also trying to get through all of this. It was new for the professors. It was new for us. It was a confusing and haphazard time. But I think preparing for this and for that entrance exam made me, understand that, okay, these are the concepts that I need to know before I enter grad school, because otherwise it's not going to work. So I started studying more, I started learning all of these things more. Basically, the intermediate micro and macro were the primary things, and then stats, maths, and econometrics. We started doing all of those, started studying in groups because a lot of people from my class wanted to go to grad school naturally. Yeah. So we all started studying together. We used to sit on Zoom sessions together and study, which was a weird group study time, but we got through it. And then that preparation actually helped me a lot during my interviews for programs that I applied to in the UK and the US and Europe. So a lot of the grad school programs I applied to, including University of Chicago, for admissions did not have interviews, but to award scholarships, they had interviews. So my U Chicago interview ended up being mostly talking about my research paper that I had submitted as a writing sample and why I chose the particular methodologies I chose and why I looked at the data I was looking at and not something else. And then they asked me questions from basically the micro and macro courses I had been revising so much to be able to give my DSE and ISI entrance exams. It worked out great. And they ended up awarding a $40,000 scholarship, and the fees was $60,000. So that's when I knew, I was like, okay, I will be able to go if I get the scholarship.
Yeah.
And then, so similarly, UCLA had an interview, Boston University had an interview.
Yeah.
But then there were also programs that just did not. So Oxford, LSE, Paris School of Economics, none of these programs had interviews. You just applied and you just hold tight till they respond back. Yeah. Basically. So that was an interesting experience. I feel like I said, just going through all of the syllabus because I needed to give that entrance test was a big factor in me being able to crack those interviews as well as I did. And then, like I said, even $20,000, I was like, when I compare it to the fees I would be paying at Delhi School of Economics or ISI, which would be under 30,000 rupees per year.
Yeah.
And this is me talking about the highest end of fees I would need to pay there.
Yeah.
It was still a lot more. So I started looking up scholarships in India. There's a lot of organizations that actually give you interest-free loans. There's a lot of organizations that give you merit-based scholarships. So that's what I started looking at. And then I came across Narottam Seksariya, the scholarship that I actually ended up securing. They're a foundation based out of Mumbai. They basically award postgraduate students from India going abroad scholarships to go pursue their degree. They have a mix of loan scholarships and actual just scholarship grants that you don't need to pay back. And their process was also similar. You submit your application, then you give interviews, then they make you take a personality test, and then you have a final interview round.
Sure.
And even in those interviews, they ended up asking me the same questions from the micro and macro courses and the econometrics courses that I was trying to study for my entrance exams and, otherwise, which was very helpful. And then that's basically me securing, my admits and my funding and all of that. And then, we finally got my visa and then landed in Chicago in August of 2021.
Yeah.
Which luckily for us, the COVID norms had relaxed a little bit by then.
Yeah.
So we were able to do all of our classes in person. We were asked to be masked, but we didn't have to be remote.
Yeah.
So which was very helpful, because moving from somewhere else to, especially a university like University of Chicago, which is known for its rigor, it would have been much, much harder to do all of it online. And one thing I realized after I moved here was that these universities focus a lot on collaborative learning. So none of our homework assignments were, you need to do this. It was, find a group of 5 other people, do it together.
Okay.
And a lot of them ended up being like that. So I feel like starting school remote would have been much harder, but luckily that wasn't the case. So I was in the MA program in social sciences. That is what it's officially called. And you apply for a particular concentration. And mine was economics, since, I had my undergraduate degree in economics, and that's what I wanted to pursue. And then I could choose my area of interest and focus. Even during that, it's only a 1-year program, as opposed to other master's programs that can be 18 months to 2 years. U Chicago also offers degrees that are 2 years long, but I ended up choosing the 1-year program. And I mostly, like I said, pursued macroeconomics and financial economics courses during my 1-year course at U Chicago. And we were also mandated to write a master's thesis, which I ended up writing in growth modeling, which was basically, I was trying to test the export-led growth hypothesis in India. So I went and looked at time series data that was available and did statistical analysis on that as part of my program. And then I ended up getting one of the top 3 awards for my master's thesis that are available at U Chicago. And then through the university, I secured the data fellowship that the Harris School of Public Policy runs. And that's what I did for 8 months before I transitioned into a corporate role that I'm currently working in.
Okay. And was it easy to transition?
So luckily for me, the fellowship had placed me in an organization called Southland Development Authority, which my role there was in a land bank, which basically what they do is they look at properties that have been abandoned for a long period of time in the county. And then we were trying to identify those properties and see what the best use for them could be. Sometimes it's just, oh, this house is not all that bad, actually. If I put in like $5,000 into it, it can be fixed into a place where somebody could live. So they would do that and sell it. But sometimes it's like, okay, this is just too bad. We have to demolish this. Sometimes it's like, oh, it's just a vacant land. We could sell this. So we were trying to collect all of that data. There were over 450,000 abandoned properties in the county. And so I was part of the team that was building the algorithm and doing the economic analysis to figure out what the best way to use those properties would be. And so as part of that, I did a lot of real estate valuation work for them, seeing what the trends were like and seeing, okay, what would a fair price for us to advertise would be for this particular property. And then from there, I started, I knew the fellowship was going to end. So I started applying, outside of the fellowship, because I decided to hold off on getting my PhD for a couple more years, which is the long-term plan. But and then from there, I interviewed at a couple of firms, and I ended up landing where I landed. It's been very different as compared to the academic environment I'm used to, but not necessarily difficult, is what I would say.
Okay. Well, it's the truth. Nothing is like academia. Everything else is different.
Absolutely. It is. There are many differences that I did not think of till I landed in a job, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is how it goes, I suppose.
Yeah. Everything. Academia is its own world, you know.
Right, right.
And they survive in their own world. So outside is quite different.
Right.
All right. So how are you doing now?
I'm doing pretty okay. I'm debating whether I should apply for a PhD program this year or wait another year and apply.
Uh-huh.
But that is the track I'm trying to go towards, because even now my role is very research focused. Even at the firm I work at, I do a lot of market analysis. I do a lot of, like I said, time series work for them. So I think my, ultimate goal would also to be to get a PhD in something still economics related, but fairly analytical and time series oriented.
Mhm.
So still trying to figure out if I need more experience in this to realize what I truly want to do, or what I have would be enough, and I should just go and get a PhD, try to focus on urban economics. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
Okay. And what advice would you give to young people?
I would say a lot of times what looks lucrative is not as lucrative as you go in. So it's important to do your research before you jump headfirst into something, but also to not shy away from taking risks. Because at least in my family, all of my cousins, all of the older generation were only doctors and engineers.
Yeah.
And they did not know anything outside of that realm. And I had no guidance from any of my family members to help me out. I had to figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
But I feel like because I figured it out on my own, I know exactly what I can do, can't do, and what I enjoy doing and don't.
Okay.
It might have taken me longer. So I think it's important to know what you like, but don't try to fit yourself into a mold that I like this because everybody else does.
Okay.
You should figure that out on your own.
Okay. Anything else you want to add at this time?
Nothing from my end, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, I usually don't ask any questions because it's your time to speak, not my time. So
Right.
I'm not going to push you in any direction, but I do want to say, if you have something else you want to add, please feel free to do so. But if not, we can end this here.
Okay, so the one thing I would like to add is if there's people trying to apply to grad schools, please try not to use consultants, because as part of my U Chicago journey, I had the fortunate experience of interacting with several admissions officers, working in the admissions office for a while. You can easily tell when your application is templated and when you have genuinely written it. It needs to be your application. And this is one thing that I get a lot of questions about. And I think if somebody's watching this because they want to follow what I'm trying to do in the sense of get into grad school out of a university in India, write your own application, seek help from your professors, from your peers, from your seniors who have been to grad school or are in grad school right now, instead of trying to pay someone to do it. Because when you're paying someone to do it and it's their job, they will have templates, and universities can easily identify them that you have not written it.
Okay. All right.
I think that's something
I think that's a
worth
very good
noting.
piece of advice, that look, you have to be yourself.
Exactly. Exactly.
You have to be yourself.
And a lot of times I mean, this is very important, that getting rejected from a university doesn't mean you were not good enough for them or that your qualifications were not good enough. Typically, especially if you're truly representing yourself, they can gauge that would you fit in that batch of students that's going in?
Right.
Would you fit in with the current interests that
Yeah.
the department is pursuing right now?
Yeah.
So I have friends who got into Oxford and Cambridge, but did not get into much lower ranked universities, if you can say so. But then I also have friends who did not get into any universities the first time they applied, but then got into like top 5 in the world the next year they applied, because they figured out what their true interest was and they actually represented themselves better.
Okay.
So it's important to be honest, not only because it'll help you get your admit, but it'll also put you in a position to succeed.
Okay, that's very good. That's very helpful, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's good experience and good knowledge to share. Okay, with that, I think we can end it here today. And maybe we'll catch up with you later when you have figured out whether you're going to do a PhD or not. And
Yeah,
you will
absolutely.
tell us about your decision then. All right.
Right. Thank
Okay,
you.
so let's end this here. Okay, bye everybody. I'll be back with another young person or an expert soon. Till then, bye.